So you guys sent us something pretty interesting this time, a YouTube transcript, and we're going to try to do a deep dive on it for.
Okay.
It's Trump's revenge-fueled speech at the Department of Justice.
Oh, wow.
And it's from Glenn Kirshner's channel.
Okay.
So we're going to be looking at that speech that Trump gave at the DOJ.
Right.
And we'll be trying to understand, Kirshner's take on it, as well as kind of pull out the themes of, payback,
Right.
how the DOJ was treated, and what it might mean for how our courts work.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice of venue.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, the Department of Justice combined with the message,
Right.
it's a pretty unique moment.
Yeah.
You'd be looking at some ripple effects from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we even get into Trump's remarks, Kirshner spends a little time, at the beginning, kind of marking the 5-year anniversary of his YouTube channel.
Wow, 5 years.
I know, justice matters. And this was the day before he posted this video, which was March 15th.
Okay.
But he uses that time to give a really heartfelt remembrance of his friend Cam,
Oh, wow.
who actually came up with the name Justice Matters for the channel.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and from what he describes, Cam sounds like just a remarkable person.
Yeah.
Smart, kind, loyal, generous, even had this kind of cool biker persona, but also, a real teddy bear side.
Oh,
Yeah, he very clearly meant a great deal to Kirshner and his family.
that's nice.
Yeah, and what resonated with me was the story behind the name Justice Matters.
Go ahead.
Because Kirshner explained that Cam saw this dual meaning.
Okay.
First, it refers to the issues and cases involving justice.
Right.
But equally important is this idea that justice is something that, most people just inherently care about.
Early people want justice.
Yeah, and that feels particularly relevant as we look at a speech that, directly engages with the justice system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Kirshner also mentions this really touching tradition that Cam had of calling his two brothers every single Saturday since
Wow.
1985.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's a long time.
It is. That kind of consistent connection
Yeah.
really speaks volumes about who he was as a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't keep that up unless you're a good guy.
Exactly.
Sure.
So let's get into this speech.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the location is hard to overlook, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Great Hall at DOJ headquarters.
Right downtown.
He's in downtown D.C., or as Kirshner calls it, Main Justice.
All right.
He mentions that when he was a federal prosecutor, that space was typically used for announcing, major law enforcement actions or for ceremonies honoring people who serve in that capacity.
Right. Like very serious.
Yes.
Very official place.
Exactly.
And really a place for.
Not really a place for.
It sounds like a political rally almost.
Yeah, and Kirshner definitely doesn't see this as just another speech.
Right.
He frames Trump's words not as some kind of unifying message, but as a hate-filled retribution rally. Driven by a desire for revenge.
Strong words.
Yeah, those are very strong terms. But when you look at how the speech was covered,
Yeah.
it does kind of align with some of those initial reactions.
Good.
The Guardian newspaper ran a headline that Kirshner highlights,
Okay.
and it was, Trump vents fury about his criminal cases in extraordinary speech at DOJ.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up right there.
It does.
The Vince Fury.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And they described it as an hour-long victory lap,
Oh, wow.
where Trump railed against Biden officials and their bullshit case while boosting his lawyers. So
It's interesting.
it is. And the Guardian article really gets into, the specifics of what made this event so unusual.
Okay.
I mean, they point out just the unprecedented nature of essentially holding a political rally inside the headquarters of the Justice Department.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wild image.
It is. I mean, the Justice Department was investigating him at one point, and now he's using it as a platform to air his grievances.
Right.
It's almost like a campaign speech.
Yeah, and the article also draws a contrast between the stated purpose of the speech, which was supposed to be about, policy on illegal immigration and drug trafficking.
Right. Sounds very official.
Right.
Very, by the book.
Yeah.
But then where did his focus actually lie?
It was all those personal grievances and
Yeah.
attacks on his perceived adversaries.
Yeah. Just airing his dirty laundry.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then the staging of the event.
Oh, yeah.
The Guardian mentions a specially constructed stage with blue velvet curtains.
Interesting.
It creates this almost theatrical image of Trump like trying to project a sense of authority or control over the DOJ.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the standard formal setting you'd expect for an official address there.
It feels very
Performative.
Yeah, performative. And the blue velvet curtains. I mean, that's a very specific choice.
Right.
It really emphasizes this break from, the established tradition of the DOJ operating with some degree of independence from partisan politics.
Right, exactly. And the Guardian really emphasizes that in their reporting.
Yeah.
They note that, historically, when presidents have spoken in the Great Hall,
right,
it's been for, really big national security announcements.
Yeah.
Or other non-political events.
Right, very serious stuff.
Yes, very serious stuff.
So Trump, according to these reports, he frequently went off his prepared remarks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to directly attack the criminal cases he's facing, even naming specific lawyers and former prosecutors involved.
Wow, so he's calling people out.
Yeah, and he accused the Biden administration of actively trying to destroy him. And went as far as to label Joe Biden as the head of a crime family.
Oh, my goodness.
Pretty intense.
Yeah, especially within the walls of the Justice Department.
Especially there. And there's this quote that Kirshner pulls out where Trump states with fury that the case against me was bullshit.
Wow.
And he delivers that right there.
Right in the building.
In the building where the charges against him were initially approved.
It's like he's trying to intimidate them.
It does. It really underscores that confrontational nature of this speech. I mean, it's a direct challenge to the legitimacy of the Justice Department.
Absolutely.
And the legal processes it employs.
Right.
And then there's the praise he lavished on his defense attorneys, Todd Blanche and Emil Bove.
Okay.
The Guardian suggests that Trump seemed to be elevating them in status, almost envisioning them in key DOJ roles.
Oh, wow.
Like Deputy Attorney General and Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General.
So, he's giving them promotions in his mind.
Yeah. And for our listeners, those are pretty high-ranking positions within the Justice Department.
Right. Very high up.
And then he mentions Chief of Staff Chad Meisel as well.
Okay.
And Kirshner adds a quick parenthetical note that the dismissal of the Eric Adams case, which Trump seemed very confident about, hadn't actually been finalized by Judge Dale Ho at that point.
So it's not even a done deal.
Yeah, it's not a done deal.
But he's already,
already celebrating.
Yeah.
And, that praise for his personal lawyers within that very specific setting, it does kind of raise questions about the perceived relationship between an individual's legal defense and the workings of the Justice Department.
Right. It's like he sees no separation.
It does feel like he's blurring those lines a little bit.
Exactly.
So then we get to Judge Aileen Cannon, who made that decision to dismiss Trump's classified documents case.
Right.
And the Guardian notes that Trump offered her notable praise, even in a way that seemed to contradict established legal understanding in that area. He claimed that criticism of her had made her angry.
Oh, wow.
Although he also stated that he had never actually spoken to her.
Okay. So he's speaking for her.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But then he called her brilliant. And the absolute model of what a judge should be.
Quite an endorsement.
It is. It really is. And, legal experts across the spectrum had raised concerns about the basis for her dismissal of the case.
Right. I remember that, there were a lot of people who were like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So his strong praise really stands in contrast to his typical reactions to judges who rule against him.
Right. He usually doesn't have very nice things to say.
No, not at all. So this leads perfectly to Kirshner's rhetorical question, which is, who has been the most outspoken and often quite harsh critic of judges?
I mean, it's pretty obvious who he's talking about, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty clear answer.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has a very well-documented history of publicly attacking judges whose rulings he doesn't like.
Yeah, it's no secret.
Yeah. Kirshner then provides this list of examples that, most people will likely remember. Judge Juan Merchan, who presided over the New York criminal trial. Judge Tanya Chutkin, who's overseeing the federal election interference case, and Judge Lewis Kaplan, who handled the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuits.
Yeah, those were big cases.
And he even reminds us of past instances like the attacks on Judge Curiel related to his heritage during the Trump University case.
Yeah, that was really something.
Yeah, these aren't isolated incidents.
No.
This is a pattern of behavior.
It really is, yeah.
And Krushner rightly highlights the very real and serious consequences that some of these judges have faced
Right.
as a result of Trump's public criticism.
It's scary.
It is including death threats and swatting incidents.
Oh, okay.
I mean, these aren't just words.
Wow.
They've had very tangible and frightening impacts
Absolutely.
on the safety and security of these individuals serving in our judiciary.
Yeah, it's really dangerous.
It is. I mean, when a person with such a significant platform targets individual judges this way, it can unfortunately incite extremist elements and erode public trust in the impartiality and safety of our court system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It makes people scared to do their jobs. Right. And it makes people think that the courts are rigged.
Yeah, so this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Trump then suggests, and Krushner notes, this seems to come somewhat out of left field, that criticizing judges should actually be a crime.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because they might be swayed by bad publicity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and The Guardian also pointed out that this idea appeared to be a new one.
So he just came up with this on the spot?
Apparently, yeah. And what's particularly notable here is the irony.
Oh, yeah.
As Krushner points out,
Right.
Trump himself has arguably been the most prominent and vocal critic of judges in recent memory.
Yeah, he loves to criticize judges.
He does. So his suggestion that such criticism should be against the law carries with it, as Krushner puts it, a strong whiff of a potential self-indictment.
Yeah, he's basically admitting to a crime.
Right.
That's wild.
It is. I mean, just imagine a legal landscape where public commentary on a judge's decision could lead to criminal charges.
Yeah, I mean, where do you even draw the line?
Right. It immediately brings up all these questions about the First Amendment and the freedom of speech.
Right, because we have the right to criticize our government.
We do.
And that includes the courts.
It does.
So this is a really slippery slope.
There's a very delicate balance to be struck between ensuring the independence and safety of the judiciary.
Right, which is super important.
Which is crucial for the rule of law.
Right. We need judges to be able to do their jobs without fear.
Absolutely.
But we also have to be able to hold them accountable.
Yes, and safeguard that fundamental right to freedom of expression, which includes the ability to scrutinize and comment on the actions of powerful institutions.
Including the courts.
Including the courts.
Yeah.
And Trump's suggestion seems to tip the scales very heavily towards protecting judges from public discourse, potentially at the expense of that broader freedom.
It's a tough situation.
It is. And Krushner concludes his analysis on a somewhat hopeful note. Yeah. Despite what he clearly views as a deeply concerning speech, he expresses his belief that despite these challenges, the federal judiciary is demonstrating resilience, acting as points of light and beacons of light that can lead us toward truth, accountability, and a healthy democracy.
Right. So he's saying that the courts are holding strong despite all this pressure.
And his focus really remains firmly on the role and strength of the courts.
Okay, so to sum it all up for our listeners.
Yes.
This deep dive into the transcript was a big departure from typical events held at that location.
Right.
The speech, as analyzed by Glenn Kirshner and reported by The Guardian, heavily emphasized Trump's personal grievances related to his ongoing legal cases and included some really controversial statements regarding both those cases and the judiciary. But probably the most notable thing was that Trump floated the idea that criticizing judges should be considered a crime.
Yeah.
Which is a real head-scratcher.
It is, considering his own history.
Right. He loves to criticize judges.
He does so.
It's very hypocritical.
It is. So this leads to a really important question for you guys to consider.
Okay.
What are the potential ramifications for both free speech and the independence of the judicial system if criticizing judges were to be criminalized?
Right.
Especially when we consider the historical context of prominent figures, including Trump himself publicly commenting on and sometimes sharply criticizing the courts.
Right. It happens all the time.
It does. So how might such a law be interpreted and applied?
Yeah.
And what safeguards would be necessary to prevent its potential for misuse or to ensure that it doesn't stifle legitimate public discourse on matters of law and justice?
Those are great questions.
Yeah, these are complex issues.
You really are.
With very profound implications for our system of